Hey guys, Teresa here. Welcome back to my channel, Lost My Thread. Today I want to show you everything I made in the month of February. February was a super productive month for me in the sewing room. I know I have a lot to share. It's going to be a bit of a bumper video. As always, I will have chapters down below so you can skip ahead to particular projects. I'll also be giving a general life update at the end. But let me get into the sewing. The first couple of projects I want to share with you are actually from my winter sewing plans, which means once I show you those, that is everything that I had told you guys I wanted to make in the winter, which I feel like I'm pretty excited about. The first thing I'll tell you about is my matching sweatsuit. The idea behind this sweatsuit really came to me in like a flash of inspiration when I saw these fabrics on the Guthrie and Ghani Instagram page. So Lauren, the owner, was showing these 3 fabrics all together, and I really love the colors together. It was giving me real 90s vibes, and I love the idea of doing some color blocking with those 3 colors, using them all. And the thing that sprung to mind first of all is the Mile End Sweatshirt by Closet Core Patterns, which I've made before, which has some really interesting design lines and makes it a really good potential color blocking thing. And then I thought, well, actually, if I could do a whole matching sweatsuit and make some sweatpants, that would be really fun. And so I used these Stella Joggers from the Tilly and the Button stretch book as a base, but I did add some extra seam lines to make it more matching with the sweatshirt. Now, I did talk about a bit of like color blocking inspiration in my last video, which was my So Frugal inspiration, and I think that this generally did inspire me and encourage me. And I just want to show you guys, like, if you want to dream up what you want to do with color blocking, the best thing I think you can do is to actually just sketch some stuff out. And you do not have to be an artist. I drew a really basic human, supposed to be me, pretty rubbish, but the point being is I had the seam lines where they're supposed to go, and I added my seam lines to the jogger so that I knew where it was going to be on the front and the back. And I played around with coloring in different color combinations to see, okay, actually, I prefer this to this, and then I can go with this combination for the front. And it basically was a really nice way for me to just mess around without actually cutting into the fabric. And I did lay everything out before I pieced it all together. I have to say, this is such a fun sweatsuit to wear. I'm not going to wear it out. I will tell you right now. This is for me at home. But man, is it fun to wear at home. It is a really nice thick sweatshirting, so it's got a really lovely marled color. I'm just going to grab both of them here to show you guys. So this is the sweatshirt. You can see those colors there kind of crossing along, going around the front. And then these are the sweatpants. Again, I've got that crossover going through, just making it tie really well together. I will put in some pictures so you can see the whole look, but it's a really nice thick sweatshirting, so you get quite a variety. It's a fleece back sweatshirting, but it's definitely like the cozier, thicker kind. So this is super warm. I have to say, this is one of these garments that I took my time to get it right. And I paid so much attention to detail. This is one of these garments where I feel like the finish is just like impeccable. Really, I have to say, I'm really, really proud of myself with how well I managed to match everything together. So for example, wherever there were colors coming together, I made sure that I changed the color of the thread here so that it would match, but it looks like a continuous seam. Honestly, there's just so many examples of this all throughout the garment, and I'm just so proud of how I was able to put all these together, and it all just looks so beautiful. I'm really happy with that, and obviously the same on the pants. So I took my time with all of my seams to get everything to match up really nicely, and I think the finished effect is very fun. Now, I will say it is doing what I wanted it to do. It feels very 90s. It feels very just like fun and playful, and definitely a really fun outfit to wear at home. I did go with a gray ribbing for the neckline and for the cuffs, and I also used it for the waistband of the pants. And that was because I didn't think this was going to have a ton of stretch, and it doesn't. Ribbing is you know, it's the ideal really if you can get it. And I felt like the gray with these colors to me was more reminiscent of what I would have seen paired with them in the 90s. Even better than if I actually used the same color of the, like one of the other colors. I really love this set. It's super fun to wear. It is super duper comfortable. The Mile End Sweatshirt, I do size down 2 sizes for my recommended size. And I also lengthened the bodice itself, or the body of it, by 1.5 inches. And then the sleeves I lengthened by 2 inches. Have I got the other way around? Yeah. The body I lengthened by 2 inches, sleeves by 1.5 inches. Because this pattern has this angle here, it does have lengthen and shorten lines sort of around here, and I add the 2 inches there, but then you have to just re-angle to kind of true up from the corner of the seam to the corner of the seam to get a straight angle. But I did it on both pieces. It came together really well. Really happy with how these look and generally how these feel. And it was a bit of a good like inspiration and reminder of me for some good color blocking fun. And I'm definitely taking that going forward into my So Frugal projects in March. Moving on then to my kind of a beast of a winter project, big one to have gotten finished, is this coat. So this is the Willa Wrap Coat by Jennifer Lauren Handmade. The main fabric is a really wonderful boucle. So it's this beautiful blush mauvey pink. Really love this color, very much one of my colors. It's a super soft polyester boucle. It's really kind of squidgy and thick and nice and cozy. And the inside is a Liberty Tana Lawn fabric. Really beautiful. The colors go so well together. Really happy with that pairing. Now, this coat in general, it was definitely a more involved project. It had some different techniques, new to me techniques. There was a really interesting technique with how the hood attached to the shoulder, where there was actually like a right angle to the seam. Let me see if I can show you guys. So an unusual angle for where this attaches. There were some quite funny pattern pieces. But I will say the instructions were fantastic. Now I made the hooded version, which came from an expansion pack. The original didn't have a hood. And I will say the instructions, when you're trying to read, it's like, it feels kind of like when you read a choose your own adventure book. It's like, do this for these steps. Now go to page 7 of the main instructions and complete steps 7, 8, and 9. And you're kind of flipping between the two, which I don't love. That is the downside of anything with like an expansion and add-on. But it's fine. Like the instructions in and of themselves were generally really fantastic, especially around that curved area, that angled area. I thought was going to be quite awkward, but it was actually really easy to follow. I will say I did have a bit of a pain with this boucle fabric because it's super thick, because it's really like spongy and quite a lot of thickness of fabric. Some of the seams were really awkward to sew. So for example, I have belt loops. I think they're probably the worst. Belt loops on the back here, and you were supposed to take this fabric, fold the 2 sides into the middle and fold them in half again, which means you're going to have 4 layers of fabric all together that you were then supposed to top stitch on either side. The fact that I managed to get a neat line of stitching to close up the end of that, to me, was impressive. There was no way I was going to be able to get another line on the other side. The line wasn't as close to the edge as it was meant to be because the fabric is just kind of poofy and shifty and it's awkward. The other thing is then when you are then folding that under to stitch it onto the coat, you've got like 8, 9 layers of fabric that you're stitching through. This stuff is thick with a single layer. I used a walking foot, I used a bigger needle, and it still was pretty awkward at points. Now, one thing that I did find that was happening a few times as well, and I had this when I've worked with really thick fabrics as well before. You know when you put your fabric under the presser foot and then you put the presser foot down to put some pressure down on it before you start sewing? When you have super thick fabric, you slide it under the presser foot. You sometimes have to even lift the presser foot to get it under there. And then it looks like it's pressing against the fabric. So there were times where I forgot to flick the presser foot down, which meant then I was sewing with the presser foot up, which is never gonna work. It gets these crazy seams. It makes a terrible noise. You have a nest of threads underneath. It's not recommended. It's not supposed to happen. And it happened to me quite a few times while I was working on this project. I feel like I instinctively, in my mind, I put the fabric under and I put the foot down. But apparently when it looks like the foot is down, sometimes I forget. So they're easy seams to unpick because they're super loose and wavy, but it was a little bit, it's sort of angrifying, let's say. Is that a word? Probably not. But yes, it made me a bit angry when it was happening. Also, I will add that I was switching between needles. So I was using a very fine needle when I was working on the lining fabric. And so I was having to like swap between the two, which kind of dragged the whole process out a little bit, made it a little bit more like I had to be switched on, which is totally fine. It's nice to have those kinds of projects from time to time. This coat, I have to say, is such a wonderful fit. I am delighted. Jennifer Lauren Handmade makes such well-drafted patterns. I really love the fit and silhouette. I didn't do a muslin of this one. because I trusted Jennifer, and I'm glad that I trusted because she knows what she's doing. This coat has darts and princess seams for shaping on the bust, which is new to me. So there's a dart that goes across the bust into the princess seam. It fits so wonderfully over the bust. So she has different bust cup sizes as well. So always going to be a nice bonus for me. So I know that I'm going to get a good fit. In general, I will say it is just such a beautiful fit on the front, but also on the back. So she's got some princess seams on the back for a nice shaping as well. Of course, I've got a waist tie and I'm going to be wrapping it around. So in some ways, I don't particularly need that nice of a shape, but I appreciate that it's there. There's a bit of room there. I probably could have done with a little bit more room. So as far as picking my size, I really should have graded out at the hip. But I was being a little lazy, guys, because between like all the princess seam pieces at the front and the back, and the not princess seam, but the lining seams on the inside as well, I didn't really want to adjust all those pattern pieces. And I looked and there was definitely some ease in the hip and I felt like I could get away with it. And I just do, but I wouldn't have minded a little bit more room in the hip. So that's me. Should be less lazy. Not going to complain though, because this coat is absolutely beautiful. Now, one of the reasons I really wanted to make this coat is because I had a very similar coat that I got from Zara that's in a black wool fabric. It's a beautiful fabric. It was very much my go-to when I needed to dress up, but it's an old coat. The pockets have worn through, the lining is messed up. The hood also, I love it when it's down because I have that kind of collared look like this one, but when you put it up, it wasn't quite deep enough and it was really floppy on the sides. It was a terrible shape. I hated wearing that hood. This coat, it's like a better version of that coat that I had before. The hood is great. It fits really well. It covers as much as it needs to. It's fitted enough with still having that nice cowl effect when it's down. It really is such a gorgeous design. I feel like lots more people really need to make this coat. I was so impressed with how it all came together with the lining sitting really nicely at the back, because that can be a little bit hit and miss depending on the coat pattern. In general, really beautiful. The only thing I will say is I wish that the pockets weren't just patch pockets. They could be a little bigger, they're okay, but I think the main thing is I feel like it kind of changes the look of the front, and a welt pocket would have been really nice, though I wouldn't have wanted to do a welt pocket with this fabric, so, you know, there is also that. But even a side seam pocket probably would have been okay, and I probably would have preferred that. Minor thing, honestly, it's such a gorgeous coat. It's definitely going to be my new go-to for dressing up. So if I want to go out and I want to look nice, I'll be wearing this. It has a beautiful finish inside and outside. There's a nice loop for hanging on the inside, which I always really do appreciate. There are some buttons at the front, so I use some Ethel and Joan buttons. They're really beautiful. All of these things, the fabrics, both the fabrics and the buttons, I got at the last, I think it was the Stitch Festival or the Knitting and Stitching Show. I never remember which one is which. The one in the fall. And I wanted them all to go together, and they go together beautifully. The two buttons I think are really pretty. I love that you can see the fabric underneath because they're a bit like transparent, they're see-through. But I did also add a button on the inside, and that's just because I noticed that the front of it was sagging a little bit when I didn't have it kind of pulled up taut on this side. So I added a little internal button. It works really well, and in general, I am so happy to have this in my wardrobe. I've been needing a dressier coat for so long, and this is very much gonna fit that bill. I also made a couple of t-shirts this month. Now, I'm not going to talk about these in great detail because I made a whole video about these two t-shirts. I'll pop a link to it up there. But this green one is the Grafton tee by Cashmerette, and this orange one, I'm calling cinnamon colored, is the Concord tee by Cashmerette. So two fitted t-shirts, semi-fitted t-shirts. Love them both. They're both made in cotton jersey from Sew Me Sunshine. Both really great colors, I will say, for me, and ones that I will definitely be wearing again and again. Can't say a whole lot other than love these t-shirts, very much staples, and I'm happy to have both of them. I also had a bit of a spur of the moment, just a whim of something I wanted to make, and that was these pants. So these are the Arden pants by Helen's Closet. I got this fabric at the Sew Me Sunshine open day. It was a little while ago. I love this coral pink color. It is such a stunning color. It's not a color that's probably like a great one for me, but it's one that I love so, so much. And I feel like it works absolutely fine if I'm wearing it on my bottom half. It is a cotton linen blend in such this gorgeous color. I want to say it was like 1.5 meters, 1.75 meters. And this pattern claims to use 3 meters of fabric, and I squeezed it, and I mean I squeezed it out of that fabric. It was like my remaining scraps were just like teeny tiny little strips. I was so impressed with myself for managing to squeeze it on. It was a wider fabric, so that definitely did help me. But these trousers are something I've had in mind for a while. They're a woven jogger pattern. So I don't wear joggers and sweatpants out and about. I feel like it's just a little bit too like homey, not dressy enough. I don't feel comfortable. Other people, you go for it. Totally don't care if anyone else is wearing that. But for myself, I prefer to be a little bit more dressed up when I'm going outside. And then I saw this pattern, or I've been seeing this pattern, and I felt like actually you can then be wearing like what feels like a super casual sweatpant, but because it's woven and because it's made in like a kind of nicer fabric, it looks a little bit dressier. It's that kind of in between casual and just like at home comfy. So I really do want to make these up at some point. And one of the details I love about these is they have elastic at the cuffs. I think that's super cute. It's very much the jogger style. And I think these turned out really well. The fit is generally fine. I did go with my current measurements, but I feel like maybe I could have gone a little bit smaller at the hip. They're slightly roomy there, but totally fine. There's not any problem in me wearing them by any means. There's some really nice roomy side slip pockets, so like an angled pocket here that's all anchored at the waist as well, which I definitely love. Really good size pockets for sure. And there's back pockets that again are a really good size. In general, I feel like this is going to be such a nice one to wear in the spring and in the summer. I feel like I can just throw lots of different tops over this and feel cute, feel comfortable. I am gonna try to see if I can get away with wearing this with more of like a blouse and maybe wearing it to work. We'll see if it's dressy enough, but I do feel like being linen, it definitely gives it some points. But it's a really great pattern. I really enjoyed the construction, really simple, really straightforward. There's a lot of finishing details that I really do appreciate. So there's top stitching that goes over the waistband that's just a little bit further from the top and the bottom. I think it was a 1/4 inch from the top and the bottom, which I think looks super professional. And then the cuff as well has just a couple of layers of top stitching going along there. I feel like all in all, it looks really neat. It looks really smart. There's a lot of top stitching details like on the pocket, top stitching, like a kind of a jeansy top stitching going down the front of the crotch seam. In general, yeah, great little pair of trousers. I will be making more Arden pants. I was intrigued to see what they were like. They are just every bit as comfortable and cool and casual as I was hoping. A winner for my wardrobe. Keeping on the Helen's Closet theme, I also made myself the Costa tote. So this is a tote bag, a free sewing pattern from Helen's Closet. It's one that I've been seeing and I've been curious to try, mainly because I really needed some tote bags and I needed some me-made tote bags. I knew that it's something that I could draft myself and I have done in the past, but there were some things about this design that I felt like I really like this and I am not going to go to the faff of designing my own. If I had, or if I was going to, I would have done it by now because I've been wanting this kind of bag for so long. So I thought, let's go for it. It's not a lot of pattern pieces to put together and it will definitely be a nice satisfying construction, which absolutely it was. Such a great beginner-friendly pattern, 100%. I would say anyone can really make this. The instructions really do hold your hand. I love that there's this angle to the pocket. It's just this little subtle angle there. I love that you get this nice little box stitching over the top of the bag to keep it secure where the handle goes in. I love that there's a lining, which is so pretty, which then makes it reversible, which is a really nice bonus. This also has really nice shaping going along the bottom. So there's like a box at the bottom, the way it's stitched together. I think I've got some pictures just to show you what that looks like. Big, huge, roomy pockets on the front and the back as well. It's a great little tote pattern. Definitely recommend if you are interested in making a tote bag. I think these would make super cute gifts as well. The extra added bonus for me is this was all made from fabric scraps. So I have been quietly on a mission to use up fabric scraps, doing not great, but a little bit by little bit, right guys? So this navy fabric is left over from another bag, a hillside tote that I had made. This fabric, I made the Anthea blouse by Anna Allen in this. It's a washed cotton fabric and I feel like they work well together. The lining is a viscose linen blend that I absolutely love. I made a matching set out of this and I really do love that set. And it was nice to use these fabrics up. I think they work really well together. I think the color blocking gives a really cool effect. And I can fold this up and tuck it in my bag whenever I might need something extra to carry around. And it has already come in handy. I've been using it loads. The next thing to tell you guys about is what I'm wearing now. So not the blue top underneath, but the shirt that I'm wearing over the top. This is the Olya shirt by Paper Theory. This is a super popular shirt pattern. It's an oversized fit. I am wearing it now over a t-shirt because that was one of the things I really wanted this kind of shirt for. But I also really like it just on its own, just buttoned up. This fabric is amazing. I love this fabric so much. I know I'm not going to be able to show you guys, it's not going to come across on camera how magical this fabric is, but it has woven teal and raspberry pink threads. It looks more teal or more pink depending on the light, depending on the angle. You may or may not be picking up on that on the video. I'm just kind of posing around on the hopes that you're going to see what I'm talking about. You're probably not going to see what I'm talking about. I will hold the fabric up so that you guys can see what it looks like, but it has a really lovely stripe going through it. It's quite a fine stripe. It's a cotton batiste, which means it is super, super soft, super lightweight, and it is just really lovely to wear. So you can see probably it is definitely quite sheer. So I would be careful about what I want to make with this kind of fabric. And that was the thing. I actually got this fabric about, well, coming up to 2 years ago now. And when I got it, I loved the look of it, but because it was so sheer, I really wasn't sure what to do with it. But an over shirt's perfect. But even just as a shirt, honestly, you don't have that much light going through. I think it works totally fine. I don't think it looks too bad, but I wouldn't want to make a skirt out of it. But basically I was sitting on this fabric and that was just in my mind, something I needed to do something with. And then another part of my brain had been working on plans to make an oversized shirt for the spring and the summer. I like the idea of having like a flannel shirt or like a chambray shirt, but I'd been looking for fabrics and none of the fabrics were my colors. They weren't really speaking to me. And then one day I was looking through my fabric stash and I remembered that idea and it was like the perfect marriage. The two things that I wanted were coming together perfectly. And because of this fine stripe, the one shirt pattern I thought of straight away was the Olya shirt. So this shirt has a really unusual design in that there's a yoke at the front and the back that attaches to the sleeve. It's really difficult. This fabric really loves to be crinkled, so it's really not going to show terribly well. But there's a seam line that goes across here, so you can see the stripe is continuous. And that really appealed to me. I felt like it would use this fabric to its advantage and it would really make the most out of the fabric. It was a good kind of a shape. I went with the size that was recommended. I'm really happy with the fit overall. Definitely just on its own it works well, but it's also perfect like this layered over other things. In general, I will say I was a little bit surprised and disappointed by the construction and the instructions for this pattern. I have made patterns from Paper Theory before and I was really impressed with how they came together and with the instructions. This one was definitely very awkward in ways that didn't particularly make sense to me. I didn't love the instructions. They do have a sew along on YouTube, which I highly recommend. But definitely the instructions for putting in the pocket and the instructions of where the pieces come together at the shoulder. It was interesting because I had done very similar things before with other patterns and I found the instructions really easy to follow in those other versions. So this pocket that's kind of like a straight line, there are these extra little pocket pieces that get sewn onto it, but they get closed up first and then they get attached, then they get closed up and then you attach through the top. It's an awkward construction. There is a very similar pocket on the Thayer jacket by Grainline Studio that I made recently, but that one, both the pattern pieces and the instructions were so much better, so easy to follow, super satisfying. This one was just awkward. The shoulder, the way it went in, again, it has that shape that I was showing you on the Willa Wrap Coat. So you have this angle at the back yoke, so like a right angle where that stitches down into place. And the way that one came together, I mean, I could figure it out, but I had to check the video, which is so unusual for me. I'm someone who really very, very rarely watches sew-alongs or watches videos to understand something, but I could not get my head around it without watching the video, which I think says something. I've been sewing for a long time, guys, and I've made some complicated things. Making that coat with that very similar shape, no problems at all. It went in really well. I completely understood. This one, it just was really awkward. So I wasn't super impressed with the instructions. The finished result, I do love. So it's one of those like, was it worth it? I don't know. I do really like the way the sleeve came together with the placket. I think that's really beautiful. There's a nice pleat in the sleeve as well. So you just get these really nice little details on there, which I think make it really special. I think that's why it's such a popular pattern. But for real, I'm not sure if I would make this again because I really didn't enjoy the process as much as I usually do. I feel like they could do some work with their written instructions. If you are going to make it, I highly recommend the YouTube sew along. Otherwise, you're probably going to get a little bit stuck. But in general, I love the way this came together. I love the colors. I love the buttonholes that I did. So I used this really wonderful hot pink thread that I had, and I feel like it pops so beautifully. It makes me really happy. The buttons, I went for more of like just a quiet blending in button, but then I have the hot pink thread on top of that as well, which I think makes them really pop. So happy with the details on this one. This one is going to definitely be a major staple for me into the spring and the summer, possibly even in the autumn. And I do love that I was able to finally use this fabric. It makes me happy. I also finished a punch needle project that I told you guys about last month I'd started. It is a couch cushion, and the name of the cushion is Festival Llama. As you can see, I've got a very festive llama going here. It turned out so well. I'm so happy with how this came together. I feel like all the colors are wonderful. The texture here of the hair is just so nice and tactile. This, I will say, I did flatten it a little bit, but when you sit against it, it does tend to flatten a bit. And I don't mind that the hairs get a little bit flat. They're kind of fun to poof out anyway. This was a whole kit that I got, and I did show this last month. So this kit was generally pretty easy to follow. I will put links to it down below if you're interested. I didn't love the instructions. I feel like they were definitely lacking a little bit here and there, but I've done punch needle before, so I probably wouldn't recommend this as your first punch needle project, but maybe if you've done one project before, like I have, you can figure it out. You can watch YouTube videos and get to the bottom of what you need to do. As far as keeping all these pieces secure, I did put some iron-on interfacing on the back of this just to make sure that none of these things were going to pull through, because I didn't want it to fall apart over time. I am glad that I did that, and I feel like the only downside is I did flatten it probably more than it intended to be flattened. You might not be able to tell. It is still definitely very nice and squishy. So the kit does come with most things that you need, but you need to buy a frame for it, which I thought was a little bit disappointing. But I've got the frame now for future use. And actually, when I bought the cushion, you also have to get a cushion to put inside. When I got the cushion, it came as a 2-pack. So I now have the frame and I have another cushion. I feel like I might play around with a little bit more like creative punch needle and making just a cool design. But watch this space, that's for later. But this also came with the back, which already had the zipper installed, which was delightful. So I didn't even have to put the zipper in. I literally just had to sew these around together and then overlock the edges, and I was good to go. So this was a really nice project to just work on really slowly, really gradually. It was so fun to watch it all come together, and it just brings a little bit more color into my living room. It makes me happy. I have not made a ton of like homeware stuff before, but it always makes me really happy to see it. It's not the thing I'm ever going to be the most excited to make, but it does bring me a lot of joy. So it was nice to get this one finished up and have it at home now. The other sewing thing to show you guys is from this dress that I made last month, the Maya Sotis dress by Deer and Doe in this beautiful stretch needle cord fabric. I mentioned after I made this dress that I'd forgotten how shallow the pockets were, and I knew it was going to really bother me to have really shallow pockets. And so I went and I did some pocket surgery, and I trimmed off the bottom of the pocket and I added on another section to make it a bit deeper. I stitched it and overlocked it just to make sure it was going to be secure from both sides. It looks a little awkward on the inside, but obviously you don't see that on the outside, and it feels so much better. I can put my phone in there, I can put things in there, and they're not going to be flopping out, which is wonderful. The only thing is when I was overlocking it after I'd stitched it in place, I think I was just being a little bit careless, and I trimmed my overlocker blade cut into the skirt itself. So I had to do a slight patchwork, which I do think you can see it, but I don't think it's going to stand out 21 when I'm wearing this dress. And I was definitely a little bit annoyed that it happened, but it's life. These things happen. I still don't regret going in and repairing that pocket, and I have officially updated my pocket piece for the Maya Sotis dress so that I don't do that same thing again. But yeah, if you do make this pocket, guys, I really do recommend making it a lower scoop under the bottom of the pocket. You will thank me later. As far as the general life update, I think the main thing to update you guys on is what's been going on with my hand and my wrist. Now, I wouldn't say that everything is back to normal, but it has improved. So anyone who's not familiar, I've been having issues with my ulnar nerve, which goes to my pinky and my ring finger, to my elbow, to my spine. And there are a lot of things that are still triggering pain. That was the main symptom that I was having. But I am definitely noticing that there are things that used to be occasionally painful, occasionally impossible, that I really haven't been having any trouble with recently. So like slicing bread would periodically be a problem. Hasn't been a problem for a good month and a half. Carrying my groceries, I'm absolutely fine. My yoga, I was noticing before when I would do like an all fours and bend my hand back, I was getting a lot of pain periodically, not consistently, but I really haven't had any problems doing that for a good like month or more. So there are positive signs that things are getting better, but I am still having the symptoms when I do certain things. Certainly knitting is still off the cards. Hand sewing is a no-go, apart from like a button here or there I can do, but I wouldn't want to do anything more than that because it is definitely a bit painful if I do. So I'm trying to get back to normal. That's the key thing. And I'm desperate to get back to work. You can see all the sewing I've been doing because I've had time, but I really, really do want to get back to work. I've been talking to my manager, having various meetings, trying to make that happen. As far as progress, like going forward, I have also seen a hand surgeon who's done a ton of investigations. I've had an MRI, ultrasound, x-ray. I've got nerve conduction studies coming up, and then I'm going to see him again just to try and figure out exactly where this problem is stemming from and talk about what my options are. I would love for it to just get better on its own, and because it's improving, that's obviously a positive sign, but I'm still really not normal. I'm still having pain when I'm handwriting and when I'm typing after a while. So I have a ways to go, but I do want to say there has been positive progress for sure. And if you have similar issues, I know other people have said that they've gone through similar experiences and made me feel positive about how things went for them. I'm hopeful that I'll get back to normal soon, but we just have to be patient with our bodies. I do also want to give a brief update of my 24 for 2024. If you are new around here, if you're not familiar, I pop a link to the video where I explained it all, but basically it's a list of 24 things that I want to do in 2024. I have a few things to just update on. I really wanted to master making my perfect chai this year. I really like chai tea, Indian tea, spicy masala tea, but it is one of those things that is so different depending on where you get it and depending on what you put in it. It can really make it quite a different drink. I know that I like a spicier chai, and I know that I don't like it too sweet. So for myself, it gave me a bit of a starting point, but it's really difficult to know because there are so many different spices you can put in chai. It's really hard to know which ones to choose. I did ask some friends of mine who grew up drinking chai, who either are from India or their parents are from India, and they had their own like favorite spice blend. And I definitely did try out a few different ones of those, as well as some recipes that I found online. I'll put a link down below to the YouTube video that I feel like explains how to make chai in a really good, like basic way, how you want to put it together, but the spices are definitely something that you can play with. But for me, I'm going to also include my favorite one that a friend of mine gave me that is her go-to chai recipe that I feel like is definitely a really great option. I would say it's probably more on the milder side for me. I think I like mine a little bit more spicy, but it's a really great mix. So I'll put that down in the descriptions if you're curious to try that one out. But it's still a journey. I'm still experimenting. I've made some progress in March, and I feel like I'm kind of honing in on my own perfect one. But I do want to share the solidly good one that a friend gave me, so check that out if you're interested. I am also still absolutely loving my phone-free day per week. I feel like I look forward to that day so much. I've only been doing it for a couple of months, and I'm like, ooh, when's my next phone-free day? And I basically have to pick it on a day where I don't need my phone for some other reason. So if you haven't heard me talk about it, it's basically a day where I literally don't pick my phone up all day. I'll just leave it like face down on like either near the charger or on my dresser or something. Don't look at it all day, and then the next day I'll follow up on anything that's come through, which is generally not anything urgent. But more importantly, I'm not just sitting and looking at my phone all day, and it's been delightful, and I still do highly recommend it. If you're somebody who looks at your phone more than you want to, give it a go, even like a half a day, see how you go. You might find that you love it. I also took out 4 more books from the library this month, so my goal was to take out 10 books from the library this year. This brings me to 6, so I've done well. I've got 2 novels, a book of short stories, and a book or play. I've been reading through them. It's been fun and just really pleasant. I love the library, so I'm glad that I was able to support it by taking these out. And the last one I want to talk about is going on regular walks, whatever the weather. I have been doing this with my husband. We've been really enjoying it. And I feel like this time of year in particular, it has been so wonderful for me. I love the spring. It is totally 100% my favorite season. What I love about the spring in particular is all the new life. So all the new blossoms, all the things starting to turn green from looking dead and brown. I really have been loving catching all those first blossoms. I feel like if you don't go out and you don't go for walks regularly, you're not necessarily going to spot those first daffodils coming up, those first snowdrops, those first crocuses. And for me, I just get so much from seeing those. It's like a boost for me. And I really love noticing, probably my favorite is when you start to see like little buds of green forming on the dead looking trees and little blossoms just starting to come out. It just feels like spring's coming, new life is starting. It just feels really exuberant and happy and life-filling. So if you're someone who goes for walks, you probably know what I'm talking about. You really do see and experience the seasons in quite a different way. And because it's been quite chilly and quite dark and rainy in London, it's given me a lot to actually make myself go out, even on days when I didn't feel like it, and experience more of the season and start to see the approaching spring. And that is my February. I would love to hear what February was like for you guys as far as your sewing or crafting, if you've been working on a 24 for 2024. Not all months are going to be smooth sailing, so it's really nice to share the ups and the downs with you guys. I feel like in general, I had a really good month of sewing. I'm proud of what I did. I'm really happy with the general finish, everything I was able to achieve. If there was anything that stood out to you as a favorite of something that I made, let me know in the comments down below. If you did enjoy my video today, please do give me a like. It helps YouTube to show me to other people, but also for YouTube to show you things that you might like as well. Also, make sure you are subscribed to my channel if you want to see upcoming videos. I will be back again soon, and I hope to see you there. Bye!